to get the leg up on the conversation, he lays down the fucking awkward hammer with, yeah, when I was 11 years old, my father was shot down in a shoe store. The guy who did it, he's free. And then I was just like, boo. Okay, suck the air out of the room for that.
This sitcom's funny. This is a really funny sitcom.
Yeah,
Like, all right, fucking Batman, chill out.
Like smooth the edges of it before you continue. They just stopped and kept going. It was really weird.
There was like nothing to cut the tension after that, you know? My dad got gunned down in a shoe store. Talk about a soulless crime.
It was so good. He did it in the Tony voice.
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, a show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Hudson Street. Hudson Street went 22 episodes with only one season on ABC. Today we're talking about episode 1, which was called Pilot, originally airing September 19th, 1995. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the boys, Joe, Ferg, Nick, and Gordo. What's going on, guys?
Hello.
Hey, oh, hey, oh, hey.
Hey, oh, Rastafarian, hey, oh, with the bomber clot. Hey, oh, hey.
To start off, for all of you guys who listen week in and week out, and thank you for that, this is week 3 of our extravaganza for the month of June, 4 different Tony Danza sitcoms. So every Thursday we have a new one. This is week 3 out of 4. The only sitcom we didn't catch, we had already covered in the past, Baby Talk. You can go back and listen to that one if you so choose. So this week, moving along in like chronological order, now we're at Hudson Street, a show I had no idea existed. How about you guys?
I wonder why.
Nope. Never heard of it.
I wish it was still that way.
Me too.
I love Tony Danza. I love former inmate Aunt Becky, but this is fucking bad.
Can I say, Tony, I thought was good in this show.
He was fine.
I don't think any one person was like bad. I just feel like
I do. We'll get into that. I think one person in particular.
Yeah, me too.
I just think it was a bad, I don't know. I feel like all the shows I don't like are exceptionally low effort, and this is another one of them.
This is also one of those ones where everybody else, for the most part, you expect it to be better. You know what I mean? If you do the math on who's in this and what they were in, Jerry Adler, Tony Danza, I don't know why this should work and it doesn't.
So what I've kind of come to learn as we've done more of these, a lot of the times when we're like, hey, a show with so-and-so and so-and-so, how did we not hear about this? How this show must be good and we just missed it. There's usually a reason, and that's kind of what we're learning here and what we've learned in the past with a bunch of shows too. So if it flies under the radar, every now and again, there's one that didn't get promoted well enough and stuff like that. But this one, I think there was a reason it only had one season.
I read one review that was like, guys, hold on. It actually gets much better. It starts slow, but it picks up. And I was like, I fucking can't. I'm sorry. I never, ever will watch this again.
This is one of those things, too, where it debuted top 10, but it was only because it was sandwiched in between Roseanne and Home Improvement. So it just had people who just didn't feel like changing the channel.
People just went to go pee.
People probably saw Tony Danza and Aunt Becky and was like, oh, cool.
Well, sure. It has all the right pieces, in that, for star recognition, and then you sandwich it in between 2 of the all-time biggest sitcoms, so people are just like, oh, whatever, I'll keep it on and see what happens. It just doesn't quite work out. We'll get into all the reasons why I think it doesn't, not to tip our hats, but, tip.
Oh, they've been tipped. There's no holding this back.
I think one thing that's the issue here is that cop shows are they're a significant genre, right? There are tons of cop shows. My favorite show of all time is Miami Vice, right? It's a cop show. Law and Order's been on for fucking 30 years, right? But funny cop shows never work. There's something about that job that really doesn't lend itself to being part of a funny sitcom.
We did Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Police Squad.
We've done Police Squad.
I feel like Police Squad's more of a farce type of a different thing, though. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I'm on the opposite end where I was the only one who didn't like that show.
Yeah, Reno 911 we haven't covered, but that's a funny take on a police show. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a world where this show could have worked. And I mean, we're obviously going to dissect it as we go through it and kind of go over some of those reasons. Also, real quick, just want to mention S1E1pod.com is where you can find all our social media links, and then everywhere we can rate, review, subscribe, all that stuff. Obviously, that helps us a lot. So if you can go ahead and do that, we'd appreciate it. And if you so choose, we have a little merch site now that's also linked there, where if you want to buy a t-shirt, such as the one you can hear that I'm wearing, obviously you can't see it, but you can go and pick up a shirt, and we make a couple small shekels for each purchase. So yeah. Also, IMDb 7.0, which surprised me.
Bananas.
I was a little taken back by that. And Rotten
It's
Tomatoes,
just Tony writing
54.
himself good reviews over and over again. They're like,
It wasn't so bad.
How many reviews were there, though? Like the 2 people that liked this show.
It wasn't like that low. I mean, it was like 100 reviews. It wasn't that many. So that does tend to happen with some of these unknown shows, that the only people who write reviews and score them are people who like them and seek them out because no one remembers them.
Yeah, it feels like it's like a niche thing you can do on those sites.
I don't know why we haven't gone and written on IMDb.
Because it's just work. It's just doing book reports for free all the time. You know,
We've actually been around officially long enough that we can as critics. I remember when we first started, I was looking into it for Rotten Tomatoes and stuff.
Does that mean we're officially critics?
I guess so.
yeah.
There.
I think by definition, I mean, there's no like critic school you go to. Like, what did Ebert and Roper do? They just started telling people how they felt.
Can it be taught by John Lovitz if there is a school?
Oh,
It
I would go
stinks.
to that school. I would pay all the money for that school.
I did want to mention too, talking about IMDb, when you go on the site, like there's usually like a little one-liner to describe a show when you go on it, and Hudson Street just goes, "Police officers fight crime in Hoboken, New Jersey, the birthplace of Frank Sinatra." What?
None of this is.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for playing.
I thought they were in New York.
Nah, Hoboken.
You actually see the Welcome to Hoboken sign in the intro.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying that much attention.
Hoboken is a very, I mean, New Jersey and New York in general are very much cousins, but Hoboken is a very like near New York vibey type of spot.
Home of the Hoboken Chicken Massacre?
What?
What?
It's a movie.
Oh,
That sounds like the title of a movie that was maybe a trauma movie from like 11 years ago or something.
so I guess we should just get into the episode itself. Show starts and we're in like the police station. It's just kind of one of those like open office setting type things. Like a lot of shows we cover have this general look, whether it's a police station or some other kind of office. Usually just a matter of, does the boss come from the left or the right?
Yeah, this is the same as like Drew Carey show upstairs offices or the Office in the Norm show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tony's sitting there, Tony Canetti, as we have said too
Hey,
during this
oh.
extravaganza. Tony plays Tony. Everyone knows Tony often plays people named Tony, but all 4 of these shows, his name is Tony.
I would do the same thing. It's easy.
So he's sitting at his desk, and that's when his lieutenant walks in, and he's asking him, "Hey, what are you so happy about?" I was like, "Oh, I just got myself a couple of Nick tickets for tomorrow night." They say Nick the whole time instead of Knicks. Is that like regionally? Do they do that?
I had the same question.
Well, I mean, it's just kind of the same. Like, you got Celtic tickets,
No, I would say Celtics tickets.
but I mean, it's not wrong.
It is.
And
them.
isn't Knicks itself already short for Knickerbockers?
Knickerbockers, yeah.
Yeah. So you're shortening the shorthand?
Wait a minute. So, wait a minute. They're named after underwear.
I mean, the Red Sox are, you know, like, there's a lot of team names that are very questionable. as you look
Knickerbockers
back.
aren't underwear, though.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Look it up.
I think
Knickerbockers
Cordell
are
is right
underwear.
this time. I don't want to firmly put a stance down just in case, because usually with him, you got to hedge your bets, but
Knickerbocker, plural noun. See, it's in New Yorker. There's nothing about underwear.
I think you're just thinking of
English.
knickers. Oh, like my
English,
like my knickers.
You
English.
mean Knickers?
No, Knickerbockers. They're called Knickerbockers.
They're
in
baggy
English.
pants. They're not underwear. They're those baggy like knee pants that you see in old movies.
Well, we can drag this on as long as we'd like, but moving right along.
Can you see in the picture?
Yes, can you all see that listening? Do you see the
I
picture?
was showing you guys.
I could have sworn they were underwear. My apologies.
Not accepted.
Well, it's rare that I'm wrong, but I'll fess up to it when I am.
So the lieutenant's saying like, "Oh, don't tell me you got a hot date." He's like, "I don't need a date. I got my son this week." And the lieutenant's like, "But don't you miss like having someone like after all these years to like snuggle up with?" Like, "Oh, I guess sometimes." He's like, "Yeah, me too." And that's like,
I don't get why that was funny.
Because him and his wife don't have sex.
They never even established that he was like married.
I think, Gordo, I think you're right, but it's not like an established thing that we already know watching this.
It's just poor writing.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah, we should have known that he was married, but you would get that from he's older, I guess.
You guys didn't see the ring on his finger? Read between the lines, man.
This
Yeah,
is also
guys.
something we see like throughout the show. It's everyone's obsession. This is like when we did Taxi and everyone was obsessed with Alex making the phone call. Everyone in the show is just obsessed with the idea of Tony going on a date. Like it's some big issue. He's only been divorced for a year.
And also, like, one of the biggest cop tropes in every cop show ever in cop movie is like, I'm working on my third divorce. Like, that's every cop, right? Like, it's so why it's insane to me that they're all like, oh, he's the weird one who's not married anymore.
Yeah, right. It's true. Yeah, I didn't really think about it like that, but that is true.
And then we get into the intro, and is this Tony singing?
I looked everywhere. It sounds like him. I looked everywhere. I can't find any information.
The Wikipedia had nothing. I typed lyrics into Google, and all you get is 2 hits on this show. So I think it was an original piece made for the show itself that he did the singing, because it sounded like him.
The composer, though, Jonathan Wolfe, his IMDb is like sitcom royalty. Like 171 Seinfeld episodes. He did Saved by the Bell, the new class. His look up his credits. It's crazy how much this guy's done.
Set the bar high with Saved by the Bell, the new class.
I've gone on record and said I don't like Saved by the Bell, the new class. I'm just saying it's music you remember.
Right. Did you guys get like a Mad About You vibe from the intro?
I got a Mad About You vibe from the whole show.
But it was this whole, like the black and white shots of the city, which just like title bars for the names of the people in the show. And that's all it was. Like without the song or any context, you just see, if you were to watch that on mute, all you know is apparently this show takes place in New Jersey.
Yeah, and this is during Mad About You's run when it was a hugely popular show too.
Mad About You, more like Mad About You.
Okay, Krusty.
The song wasn't bad though. It had that old Rat Pack vibe. I guess it was being advertised as, hey, Frank Sinatra's from here.
What an odd thing to advertise.
Italians love Sinatra. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, the Rat Pack is never gonna not be something Italians want to talk about.
Gordo, you want to hit us with a couple bars from the intro?
Hey, oh, hey, is a Hoboken.
Is that what that's not?
I feel like we're just gonna like play that. We're gonna YouTube this and tag it as like Gordo sings about New Jersey and just watch the crazy hate mail come in about you.
Up until another show that I'm going to bring up later that we talked about off air, this song was stuck in my head for the majority of the day.
That's a tough day, pal.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Must have been a slow day.
No, it's just like a little kind of Rat Packy type song.
It's like a jaunty, jazzy tune.
People say that love will stay. Maybe today's the day. This time it feels so right. Maybe tonight's the night.
Actually, maybe more of like a Frasier.
Yeah, you know, with him singing it too, that is very Frasier.
Yeah, more of a Frasier vibe than anything.
Man, I wish we watched Frasier this week.
We already watched Frasier.
I know, I just didn't want to watch this.
From there, we get into the next scene and we see Tony in his like small apartment. I thought it was a studio, but later on we see his bedroom. But there is like a bunk bed in the back, so I assumed him and his son shared the bunk bed. Well, why else would there be a bunk bed like in the middle of the living room? Like, he's in the apartment and he's like getting dinner ready, and we hear like a knock at the door. He runs over to the door. First, he has to put his gun away. I don't know. I guess he cooks with his gun.
I will say though, I gave him credit for locking
Yeah, me too.
the gun drawer. When you have a little kid coming over the house, like, keep your gun locked up, man.
Before we go further, though, I do like, one of the things I did like about the episode was the realistic apartment. We've talked about this a lot. I feel like it is a realistic sized apartment. It's not like crazy big.
The apartment for sure has dad got divorced vibes.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job with that.
Kirk Van Houten definitely lives downstairs from him in this apartment building.
It would have been great if he slept in like a car bed because he's a divorced dad.
I thought until later in the episode that he slept in the bunk bed, and when his son was over, he got to just hop him up in the top bunk. So he opens the door, and it's his son Mickey. They're like hugging, and right behind him is the ex-wife. And from the second she spoke, I hated her so much.
Yeah, it's funny. this was such a bad quality, like visually. I couldn't see her face. Was I the only one? Like, I don't know who she is.
It wasn't that bad when I watched it.
She reminds me of the girl from Entourage. I forget her name. But she's
all right. That's what I was thinking.
You know the vibe I got from her? Not like necessarily based on her face, but I got the Linda from The Wedding Singer vibe from her.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're a bitch.
Because when he first opened the door, he's calling he called the son honey for whatever reason, like that was the gag. But then she goes, "I used to love it when you called me honey, didn't I, Tony?" It's like,
no, she's a hard tone in this. She goes, "No, why?" She's didn't I tone the whole fucking time.
So yeah, right off the bat, I'm like, oh. And now she walks in too, and he like makes all these not so subtle hints that he really doesn't want her in the apartment. And she's like trying to eat the food that he's cooking, and she's making small talk with him.
This went a very different way than I thought.
As we talk about it, to me, the dynamic between these two made no sense, and like they both kind of flipped in the middle of the scene.
Yeah. Like, I thought she was trying to get back with him or something. Or
Yes.
He left her and she still loved him.
It starts like unorthodox. Like, oh, maybe he's the one who ended it, like, which is strange, but like still possible.
That's the vibe they were given because, she seemed to be like, she walks in reminiscing about when he used to call her pet names, and he was like, "Please get out of my house." As they continue to talk, the son leaves to go talk to a friend of his, I guess, who lives in the same building or something like that. And they're talking, and it comes up that this is the 1-year anniversary of them getting divorced. They start reminiscing about, like, how long they've been together. And it's like, "Oh, we've been together since before puberty. Like, you didn't even have facial hair yet." And he said, "You didn't even need a bra back then." And then takes note to the fact that she still doesn't really need one. She's not, very top heavy.
It's a little oddly too sexual here. It's just confusing. Because she's like, "I miss your cooking." He's like, "I miss your ... You're like, what's happening?
I miss your A-O.
He misses her a-hole.
Can I also back up for a second and say that Tom Brady kissed his son multiple times in the show, and it was really fucking weird.
I flagged that too. It was a little weird.
Yeah, but you know what Tony Danza would be? A good sport about being on a roast. So good for you, Tony Danza.
He was a field goal kicker.
Okay, this is as this is becoming a more and more dated reference the more you guys go back to it. But the thing, you got to remember, and I will say, like, I come from a super Italian family where it's not that weird. Like, it really is.
No. I get that. Especially even then, it's not that weird.
On an actor standpoint, that this isn't actually his son, then like maybe it's like he's very touchy. But as far as like an Italian dude seeing his son and giving him like a kiss, that's not weird.
I mean, he was more touchy with the son on Who's the Boss the week before.
But he wasn't Tom Brady kissing him.
Stop trying to make Tom Brady kissing happen.
For me, again, it remains, I don't think Tony Danza or Tony Canetti or whatever his character's name is kissing his son it didn't flag me that much. It just,
his kid.
I didn't notice it, to be honest.
Oh, no, I did, because he like kissed him like multiple times throughout this episode.
To be fair, though, I may have not noticed it because I spent a vast majority of this episode looking down at the timer, being like, how much longer?
I watched the clock the whole time with this show.
Me too.
It was dragged so bad.
You guys said that. I didn't really get that vibe from it. Like, it was,
I didn't love the show. I didn't feel like it necessarily dragged. It was pretty cookie cutter, like three camera sitcom. So very dialogue heavy in that not much physically happens throughout the episode.
It's too dialogue heavy too, and everybody has a monologue. Like, Aunt Becky has the giant monologue in it. You have the Jerry Adler monologues. You have the guy giving the whole thing about his uncle.
It's almost like the show is just like an audition reel for like all of these actors, and not a good one. What is the difference here between Who's the Boss in this show, year-wise?
Like 3 years, I think.
Okay.
After it ended, yeah.
It seems like maybe like, we got a Tony Danza like coming off Who's the Boss, a hot show, like let's just like get him into something right away. But I mean, there was time to develop this show, and
they should have got Mona instead. It's just like a horny cop.
Imagine if Mona came in as the ex-wife.
Yeah.
Way better show.
Way better.
But I don't know if it's necessarily like, oh, he's a free agent. Like, I don't know if the show is built around him or not. Actually, this is a really tough show to find a lot of information on.
Yeah, dude, there's like nothing on the show. Like, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but the IMDb doesn't even have the trivia button to click.
It didn't exist.
Which I've never seen before.
I mean, you could go and find some stuff if you look up individual people, but nothing really pertaining to the show.
Yeah, and like the creation of. So I don't know if this was made with Tony Danza in mind or if he just ended up in the role or not. It does feel very much like it was kind of him in mind for that character, but I'm not totally sure.
I thought I saw in the credits he was like a writer and executive producer. I know executive producer usually don't matter, but the writing part.
Whoever got the role would probably end up being an executive producer at some point. But anyways, to get back into this, the two are talking, and there was actually a nice little part, I don't know if you caught it, where she's like reaching out to like grab some of like what he was cooking, because she had noted earlier that she like always misses his cooking, and he like slyly gets the pot away from her.
Yeah, don't touch this shit. I like that.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
He's making a gravy, right?
Yeah, it looked like, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a spaghetti sauce.
Not
Moving
now.
on.
It's like, do you take the bait? Do you take the bait?
Moving on.
People who listen to our show consistently are like, I wonder if you dissect the amount of time we talk about food versus the TV show itself, what the ratio is.
The percentage would be much higher than probably acceptable.
It's like, I don't want to know.
It's just our way to talk about food.
The two are talking, and his ex says, I got to tell you something. I found someone. He's like, for all of us? And then she's like, no, I met a guy, and it's like getting kind of serious. And I'll say again, to his credit, one of the very first things he asks, like, is he good to Mickey? That's like his first question.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he's very like family focused. And we find out, a little bit more about him. It's like, oh, he does all these things. He got me these flowers for absolutely no reason. And then he like reads like the card or whatever, and it's like, Lucy, these flowers are for absolutely no reason. Which was so dumb, but for whatever reason, was like the one thing I thought was funny this whole episode.
To be fair, though, I do love getting flowers randomly for no reason every once in a while, because it's just like a nice thing to do. And now next time I do that, that is for sure going to be the card.
Oh, giving flowers. I thought you meant receiving.
I thought he said that.
I sent them to myself, actually, and I'm just like, oh!
For me? Joe, who works from home, but he's like pretending he's talking to the office. Ooh, I don't even know where I'll put these.
Leave it with the receptionist. Meow.
And then we find out a little bit more about him, and he's like, so what's this guy do? And that's when she says, his name is Dr. Robert Alfred. He's like, oh, a doctor?
I do appreciate that he makes fun of
He does
the
color on it.
pronunciation here.
And he's just trying to, so what is he, a veterinarian, a podiatrist? Is he a bunion specialist?
Fuck you, you divorced flatfoot cop. Who cares if he's a fucking veterinarian or podiatrist? He's a fucking doctor. How dare you? It doesn't matter what his specialty is.
Well, that's where it's getting weird, because now it flips, because they walk in and she's like reminiscing about the past and, oh, I miss your cooking and when you used to call me honey. And then he's like, please get the fuck out of my house. And now 2 seconds later, she's like, hey, I found someone. And he's like, well, is he better than me? Like, so it's like,
bigger? Can you fix my bunions? Like, shut the fuck up, man.
Things shifted pretty quickly.
I got them corns here. Where you go?
And then she says he's an MD. And then he, again, is trying to get around. Well, it must be low level, but he's a brain surgeon.
A lowly brain.
It was just one of those, like the dynamic between the two was so strange.
I didn't get it.
Yeah, when she came in, I was like, this isn't the will they, won't they?
Well, no. Well, we knew as they did and it didn't. Like,
Yeah.
I really thought she came in trying to fuck. Like, 100%.
That's how the vibe she gave. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
the vibe is
very-
definitely flirty.
I did like that when he found out that she was a brain surgeon. He went, "Oh, so how'd you two meet? You went in for an estimate?"
I did like this, yeah.
I remain. He was good throughout the episode. I really
He's
do
the
think
good part of the show.
He is the good part of the show, but I also feel like that's him writing. Like, that's a line that he wrote. He was like, oh,
Yeah.
know what we should say? Like, that feels very much something he would put in.
And then the son comes back from wherever he went, and
His friend.
Joey's
Joey.
Joey.
yeah,
his
Joey
friend
stuck a
Joey.
grape up his nose. He's like, "Oh, cool."
It could have been Joey Tribbiani in this building, I thought, up until this point. or up until a later point when he mentions him as a kid. I was like, are they wedging like a weird Joey spinoff into, because the time matches up too,
And the dumbness of Joey putting a grape in his nose.
yeah. I thought, and then they later said that he's a kid, which they took way too long to mention, I think.
He's a kindly old man who lives down the hall who I hang out with sometimes.
It sticks grapes up his nose.
Booga 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 booga. He's so funny.
To go back into like just that, the dynamic between the two, she's going to leave now and is telling her ex, like, hey, you know, like, I really think you should start dating again. Like, you know, you'd really benefit from finding someone.
What a weird thing to say.
It's like, again, it's we're a couple minutes in and two different people like, Tony, how come you don't date? You know, it's not like it's been years. He's like still somewhat fresh off a divorce and his ex just met someone like recently. It's not like, you know, there's this big gap.
Yeah.
But it's one of those, you know, they're really trying to drive it home like really early, like, hey, this guy really needs a date. If only a girl would pop into his life.
It all would have worked a lot better if they just had the dynamic that they hated each other from the second she walked in. Like, she was the ex-wife that they just go at each other. And then her telling him about the new guy would be to rub it in and stuff and get to him, and it works.
Yeah.
But
She should have told him about the new guy, and he should have just made wisecracks about how sorry he feels for him.
Right.
Yeah, and she could have left instead of like having like an earnest like, hey, you know, I really think it's time for you to date again. It should have been her making fun of him for being single still.
What's weird is the writer for this show also wrote Mrs. Doubtfire. And if you think about that scene where Sally Field first goes to Robin Williams' like shitty apartment, how contentious they are, how well that works for the movie and their relationship. And they do the opposite here from the same writer, and it doesn't work at all.
Maybe he learned from his mistakes.
No, Mrs. Doubtfire's first.
Oh.
What year did Doubtfire come out?
93, I believe.
I was gonna say right around there, but yeah.
you know, I haven't watched Mrs. Doubtfire since he died.
It took me a while, but you just smile still. It's sad.
I
but you still
remember
smile.
the first time. I remember being at work, and it was like shortly after Robin Williams died, and Hook was on TV, and I love Hook, and I got sad like right away. I was like, oh please, this can't be a forever thing. I don't want to not watch Hook again.
You know, it's an underrated Robin Williams masterpiece that I think needs reevaluation that we watched recently, Popeye.
Oh yeah. Popeye was really good.
Do you know the set to that is still there? They just abandoned it. It's
Really?
on some random island or like
Let's go.
cliffside thing. Like, it's all still there.
We'll go there, and then we'll go see the ranch from Hey Dude.
Perfect.
I think the Popeye one would be a little more exciting because there's more stuff there. I think the ranch from Hey Dude is just like some
There's
fencing.
very little there, yeah.
It's like a fence and a spider. Probably not the most fun place to go, but
And that killer cacti.
Hey, dude.
So, the next scene, we're back at the police station, and we see Officer Rogalski, and he's on the phone trying to organize his uncle's obituary. And we're getting, just through the phone call, his uncle was an interesting character, right?
yeah, we're shoehorning the mob stuff in here.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that guy be like completely ostracized from his family if he comes from a mob family and then he's like, I'm going to be a cop?
No, he's the inside man.
Oh, that's a good point. All right.
I did hear that part of The Departed was based on the story of Hudson Street.
Yeah, just unfortunately not the part where someone gets thrown off the fucking roof and we get to stop watching it.
While he's on the phone, the lieutenant walks in. The officer like looks up like, hey, Lieutenant, like, how would you describe my Uncle Ted? Low life scum. So he was a known criminal in the area.
Alleged assassin, alleged racketeer.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on with him. During the conversation, another officer walks in, the only female officer we meet, Officer Kirby McIntyre. And this is the character I think I disliked the most. I thought it was extreme overacting the entire time, and no offense to the actress that plays her, but every time she spoke, I was like rolling my eyes. It was just too much.
Well, you know what I don't get is he keeps taking her off the case and then keeps saying the woman thing. But they never explain the actual reason why he's taking her off her cases. So I can only believe that it really is him being sexist and removing her because she's a woman.
Yeah, because then he ends up handing her the thing. It's like, you make the coffee. So I guess we're to believe that, which makes you immediately not like his character.
Either deep down she's not that good, or he's trying to protect her when things are getting bad.
They need to show that she's not good, or he's trying to protect her. They know they just
Right, yeah, we just jump into their lives and they expect us to know this. I mean, she's got to be good enough to have made detective, right?
And maybe you wait like a couple episodes before you bring a storyline like that to life. So
she is in another sitcom that I know we've talked about doing before, so it'll be interesting to see when we do that. She's in the like that weird 90s Bob Newhart show. Bob?
Oh, can she act in that one?
I don't know. We'll find out. I think it'll be interesting when we do it to be like, oh, I wonder if this is just a bad character or something, or bad choice.
Yeah, but she's going on about how she can't, she keeps getting thrown off all her cases, and the lieutenant, who is engaged in the conversation, is more preoccupied with the fact that he can't get the coffee machine to work. And like you said, it eventually turns into him just kind of passing it off to her and saying, like, here, you do it.
What is he doing? Did you track his steps?
He's pouring water into it, but there's already something into it. He doesn't pour the old coffee out.
Yeah. He adds water to old coffee, pours it into the coffee machine, and then complains that it doesn't work.
I thought he was trying to make instant coffee until I saw the actual pot that he was trying to fill with coffee already in it.
What the fuck was he doing? Like, even from like an actor's standpoint, as far as like keeping yourself busy with props, like he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. It was wild.
Maybe he was ad-libbing. Maybe he really is a tea guy, and he was just reminiscing like, boy, I could really go for some tea right now.
I mean, as discussed on this show many times, some people do not like coffee.
You said the girl was a bad act. I thought he was. He seemed really disinterested to me in every like line he had. Like he half said every line.
Maybe as they started recording, he realized what the show is going to be.
He was like, in a few years, I'll be in The Sopranos and this won't matter anymore. I'm just going to walk through this.
Hey, a cop show? You got Tony Danza and the Full House girl? All right.
I mean, on paper, if someone said, do you want to be in this show? You'd be like, of course I do.
Yeah.
I love him, Becky. Sign me up.
You think she can help me get into college? I can't believe it took this long for one of us to make that joke.
Well, we didn't even see her yet. So
still, I'm surprised it took us that long.
We go back to the other officer who's on the phone with the obituary editor, and he's, going over some of the details. And when it's like the names of his kids, no, I can't tell you the names. Witness protection program.
Oh, so bad.
I want to be put in the witness protection program after watching this show because it was so bad.
So you don't like this show so much you want to abandon everybody you know and all the stuff you do just because you saw it?
Yes.
That's an interesting take. Will the Doodle be also in witness protection?
Yes.
What will you change Doodle's name to?
Boodle.
They'll never figure it out.
We found out that the uncle died watching the Weather Channel on his couch. And it was that, wait, nobody actually watches the Weather Channel. I feel like back then you kind of needed to, though, didn't you? Like you didn't.
It's 1995. You need to know what the weather's going to be.
Yeah, you didn't sit and watch it like the whole time, but you had to click over to see what the weather would be because you couldn't just Google it yet.
Unless you were watching the normal news and the weather forecast came on.
Right. Or had the paper.
But I always thought that was a more tedious, like, waiting for that specific part of the news broadcast.
Yeah, there's a whole channel that every 5 minutes resets and tells you what the weather's going to be. You just put it on and watch it for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when the other girl was like, oh, I bet he was watching that X-rated channel. That's what Howard does. He switches to the weather whenever I walk into the room. Then he expects me to believe that it's the 5-day forecast that gets him all horny. Like I care. It's like, oh.
What? Yeah. What is like? Can you explain to me what you think "like I care" means from her perspective?
That she doesn't. I think that she doesn't want to have sex with him.
Because I heard it as I don't care how he gets horny.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it could have gone a few ways.
It could have been. I didn't even think of it like that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
As long as it's up. I mean, it could have been a few things.
His cock's in his hand. I'm going to suck it.
I felt like...
Damn it, Joe.
Does that work?
Not in my experience, no.
Sound clips I'm glad I have. I felt like she was like prepping for this show and she just watched like an old Dice Clay thing. And she was like, all right, this is how they talk.
They. She's like Irish or something. She's like, how do those guineas talk?
It could have been worse. She could have had the Harley Quinn accent, the New Jersey. Mr. J.
Oh yeah, the Drescher.
Oh, Howard.
The dresser.
Oh, is that a New Jersey accent? That's not just a New York accent?
The tri-state area.
Yeah, I think it's all pretty similar.
They have it changes.
It's like the Western New Jersey accent.
Yeah, like even within New York, like borough to borough, there's like certain inflections that are different.
Yeah.
I guess I don't pay enough attention to New York to know.
Is there a New Jersey basketball team?
Not anymore. The Nets used to be in Newark, and then they moved to Brooklyn.
Right. So yeah, when they built a new stadium, right, or a new building. But that would have been a team in '95, right? Why is he rooting for a New York team?
Yeah, it's actually a good point.
The Knicks were like very popular.
Yeah, they were like one of the first NBA teams, weren't they? Like one of, maybe not the first, but
I mean, I don't know, so I'm not going to say one.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it. I know they mentioned Patrick Ewing at one point, and I remember him being very popular when we were kids. This would have been when we were like 10. So
The New York Giants play in New Jersey, so they have football.
and the Jets.
And the Jets, that's right.
Like the Nets used to play in Newark, right? And Hoboken is all of like 20 minutes away from there.
right, it's not like they're in a totally different part of like the Pennsylvania side of New Jersey or anything.
It's a Jersey thing.
But in fairness, Hoboken to New York City is even shorter. So it's like,
Well,
Fair.
The New Jersey Nets was established in 1967 as a charter franchise of the NBA's rival league, the American Basketball Association, before relocating. Oh, okay. The American Basketball Association. They played in New Jersey as the New Jersey Americans during their first season before relocating to Long Island, New York in 1968 and changing their name to the New York Nets. So they actually were kind of a New York team.
cool. So anyways, yeah, this girl Kirby's, after she talks about her husband's boners, happens to notice that Tony's on the computer and seeing what he's looking at. And that's when she sees that he's looking up some Harvard Medical School chief surgeon guy. So now we know he's just trying to do some background info on his ex's new boyfriend. And the lieutenant's like, yeah, you better catch him quick before he wins the Nobel Prize.
The only way I feel like you can save this is if you think he's checking for his son.
Sure.
Okay.
But they ruined all this by him not wanting her in the apartment at the beginning. I'm sorry I keep going back to it, but like, why does he suddenly care and he's looking into all this?
I don't think he should show any signs of caring other than for the son. But yeah,
Yeah.
they made him look super jealous as soon as he found out that this dude exists. And so now it just kind of aids into that.
Kirby's an interesting name.
Yeah, what do you think that's short for?
I meant to say it earlier, but people were talking and I don't want to interrupt like I always do. And then it came back to me just now.
What do you think that's short for?
I think her name is just Kirby. I don't know if it's
just
short or
Kirby,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah, that was Kirby Puckett, right? That was just the full name.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but that's
Yeah. Just of
Yeah.
Irish and English origin.
And then there's Pink Kirby who eats things and turns into them. Gets their powers.
So Tony's trying to explain to everybody that he's not in a situation where he needs to be with someone else and how he's pretty happy with his life. And he's got a good rotation where he sees his son and all these other things. And he's got those Nick tickets for tonight. Basically, the only thing that he has going against him in life right now is that he's tired of the dog shows that are on the sports channel.
Yo, I know we all had the same thought of Raw being
Of
canceled
course.
for the
Yep.
dog show.
It was the 1 week and you didn't know it was coming because I don't know if we were just too young. Like the information was probably out there, but we had no way to find out. So you're a little kid and you wait all week long to watch Monday Night Raw and then you put USA on and it's just the fucking dog show. And it was the worst week.
No, come on, no.
I used to watch the dog show with my mother.
I've never watched it. It made me so mad every year. It was like a devastating blow.
I loved to watch the toy dog group because they were little. I liked seeing their little legs.
What does that mean?
The little tiny dogs.
Yeah, their little legs, like when they walk and they prance.
I thought there was
they-
like a legit competition for people who had fake dogs.
Those robotic dogs.
I mean, I'd watch that. That actually sounds really cool.
fuck, these are real dogs.
I think because of Best in Show, I could never ever actually watch a dog show now. It's just so... That movie's so specific that it's all I could think of.
Now, as a dog father,
Hey,
Martha
here we
is
go.
not show worthy, but I would try and enter her into a competition.
I mean, again, from the pieces I've seen, usually it just seems like they run around with you and then they go up a slide thing and then down the other side.
Nope, that's agility.
You idiot. You stupid idiot.
You fucking idiot. It's when they put them up there and they check them for breed standards, like their hindquarters, their teeth, their mouth, their...
Do they check their pee-pee score?
Oh, check that heat coming off its ass. It's like...
No, but they do. They check them for like breed standards. And I don't know how they determine one looks different from the other, but okay. You guys really never watched it?
No.
No, I would shut off the channel in such a fury. Like, I was so mad.
Because it always took the spot of something we wanted, yeah.
At that point of my life, like when you're a kid, especially we all grew up loving wrestling, Monday Night Raw at that time of our lives was the thing you spent all week looking forward to watching.
Yeah.
It was like such a treat. It was like the one time you were going to stay up a little late. And then you go to flick it on and it's a fucking dog show and a bunch of poodles and old people running around. There was like no way I wanted to see that.
What deal with the devil did like the USA Network sign with the Westminster people? You know what I mean? Like, because it went on so long.
For real, it was so uncharacteristic of the network.
Right, it's like, La Femme Nikita, silk stockings, and now we're going to judge poodles. Like, wait, what's happening?
On a prime time live spot, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
You had to be under the assumption that Raw was giving them like crazy ratings, right?
14 million people back then? Like, something
So
like
there's
that.
no way that like this dog show is bringing in better ratings that they couldn't move it to a different time slot.
Internally at WWF, they must have been like just so mad whenever that came up.
USA's like, we'll give you X amount of million per year. However, on the third Monday of every September, it's dog show time.
It is weird too though that it's prime time because they're like, well, enough people want to see this. It has to be when people are out of work. It can't be on like Sunday at 2 p.m.
To get back in, again, we get the, Tony, you really should start dating again because everyone is so obsessed with this idea. It's like, hey, I've been on some dates and like arresting a hooker and driving her downtown is not considered a date. Hey, we talked.
I would date, but I gotta go watch Alex make his phone call.
We're not even halfway through, and I've already noticed that I've laughed more than I remembered laughing.
There's a few in this scene.
But that's when it's like, hey, and the other officer's like, I'm on the phone with a girl. Maybe you could date the girl I'm talking to. And it's like,
What an unrealistic premise. Hey, I don't know you. You don't know anything about me or the people I know. There's another guy here. Do you want to go on a date with him? Sure.
and
What?
here's the thing too. This is the stuff that like bothered me fundamentally about how like the episode like went as far as writing goes. The phone gets handed to him. And then when you get that one-way conversation where you just hear him talking, and it's nothing but awkward from the second he starts talking. He tries to make a little joke about the obituaries, and then it's just like, hey, I'm sure you're a nice girl. Oh, person, I'm sorry. And he's like, I'm not really interested. And then he's trying to say, oh, he's not looking to get involved with anyone. And then there's like a conversation about like him using gender terms. Well, it was actually not in the way that it would be done now, but just the fact that he was indescriptive of what he's into. But the whole conversation is an absolute mess. And then it hangs up. He's like, hey, I got a date. It's like, where in the conversation was that established at all? Like, you didn't even hear him react to the idea of a date.
I think that was the point, though. It wasn't supposed to sound like that he ended up accepting the proposal for a date, but he did.
But who asked who out? He didn't even ask her out. Did she
It
ask
sounded
him
like
out?
she was like, so do you want to go out? And say, yeah, okay, whatever. And then like hung up. Like that's just how it was intentional is the point, though, of the question. It was supposed to not sound like that.
But no, I've got last row Nick tickets.
He was so excited about that game. I find it hard to believe that would escape his mind, though, because he can't go to the game with his son.
Yeah, I would have said, I'm going to the game with my son.
Well, he forgot.
That's what I think. He wouldn't have forgot. He was wicked excited. He brought it up twice.
I think like 10 seconds before he was on the phone, he was holding the Knicks tickets in his
Yeah, he was waving them in the
I
air.
will just say, sometimes in those moments, I can see how you get wrapped up in the situation because it's like he wasn't even expecting to talk to this girl. The next thing you know, it's like, oh, see you at 8, and it was just I can see how like the confusion just derailed, his thought train.
And the thing is, they wrote themselves into a corner because they wanted it to be the one-way conversation and you not see her yet. But this all could have been fixed with a split screen if you heard her being assertive, saying, "Oh, the date's here, blah blah blah." He doesn't get to get a word in, and then hangs up. Like,
Why even put all the emphasis on the fact that he had these Nick tickets? Like that it came up multiple times.
So many times.
There was no real payoff to it.
No.
So he didn't go to hang out with her, and it does get mentioned later on. We'll get into it later. But there was no payoff to the fact that he had these tickets. Like nothing comes from it.
And he wasn't like, it's playoffs, it's game 7, it's something like there's no stakes to it at all.
He didn't miss something significant in the game. Like that game should have meant something later in the episode.
Real quick, I've been trying to think of like what this set reminded me of, and it just came to me. It's the Norm set, isn't it?
We said that earlier.
Oh, did
Yeah, I
okay?
said
I
that
missed
earlier.
that then. All right, because it's. But is it the Norm set? Is the question?
I don't think
'Cause
it's
like
no. I think these shows ran at the same time.
because it was like strikingly similar.
Yeah.
Very
Well, like
similar.
I said, a lot of these shows were the same. It was, do you come in from the left or do you come in from the right? The show
Yeah,
actually did. Actually, the Norm show is like 4 years after this show. So I guess technically it could be, but I don't think they were identical. But it's similar. There's a lot of setups that are like this.
Mhm.
But now in the next scene, we are at Tony's house again, and now he's in his room. So I guess, like I said, the bunk bed was not for him. And he's asking his son, "Hey, how do I look?" The kid said, "Desperate." It's like, oh,
I wasn't expecting that for some reason, but it
this
was funny.
kid wasn't a bad kid actor. I was
No.
actually
No.
very
No, he wasn't bad.
surprised.
But he's not acting much. He's in a boy band I'd never heard of before.
Which one?
Insane.
Hold on. I wrote it down. It's Dream Street?
I know Dream Street.
I've heard of them. I don't like. I the name sounds familiar, but
That's past our time. They were like, I believe they were made by Disney.
That makes
I
sense.
believe. I'm not positive though. Don't quote me on that one.
The only boy band we recognize on this show is Together.
yes.
Go back and watch our episode.
Yeah. So they continue talking. He tells his son, "Hey, man, I'm really sorry about the Knicks game, And he's like, "Oh, that's okay. Like, Dr. Bob took us the last week." It's like, "Oh, those tickets are probably pretty crummy, though, huh?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, it was terrible. Like, Patrick Ewing's sweat kept getting all over me." Like, yeah, that's why we usually sit in the back.
Oh, that's what he said. Okay.
This is after the sight gag, too, where he just doesn't know how to close an ironing board.
Yeah, that was actually pretty good. I thought, like, that was a good little physical gag.
It gave him something to do, at least. You know what I mean? It wasn't just him standing there, like, preening in the mirror or something.
I like that the kid could pick up on the jealousy. So he's like, "It's okay, Dad. Like, you're still the greatest." And but he still like feels that he needs to sell himself to the son to be like, "Hey, but like, remember I did all these things for you. I rocked you to sleep, and I used to wipe the drool off your face." And then in a much like Ferg fashion, he goes, "You told me broccoli was a dessert."
Smart.
Wouldn't have worked because it still tastes like farts.
I will say, I like broccoli, but it's a hard sell as a dessert.
We've had the conversation multiple times, so I don't want to really get into it. But the idea that like even doused in cheese, you can't get down with a piece of broccoli is
No,
insane.
remember when what were we in Old Orchard Beach? You guys tried to make
Yeah.
me eat it, and I almost threw up.
Yeah, but like you almost threw up before it like even really got to you. Like it doesn't matter. We could have swapped it out for a piece of chocolate. You still would have thrown up because of what you were expecting.
No, I love chocolate. You're wrong.
So this closes out with basically him telling his son, like, "Hey, listen, I'm going out, but if you need me, call me. Even if you want me around, I'll leave. I'll come by." Like, because he's afraid to go on this date. He tells him he left the mother of the person he's staying with his pager number. He's like, "Dad, just don't worry. Like, just be yourself." And, he leaves the room. He's like, "Be myself. That's why your mom left me." It's like, oh, so she did leave him.
Yeah, it's the first confirmation we got that she actually left him.
It's like,
Too far
didn't
in,
establish that relationship well enough at all. And now he's alone in the room and he's kind of practicing greeting Melanie when he first sees her. "Hi, Melanie. I'm Tony Canetti. Nice to meet you." "Hi, Melanie. I'm Tony Canetti. Nice to meet you." And he's doing like the whole thing over and over again.
He's doing the "I'm Mrs. Julia Gulia."
Yeah. Ends with that whole, "And I haven't had a formal date since the Carter administration."
So we find out they started dating when they were really young, but Taxi was on during the Carter administration.
Yeah.
And Tony wasn't that young in Taxi. Because Carter was 77 to 81.
You telling me he's a two-timer?
I think he probably should have said a different president, like since the Johnson administration or something. You should have gone back Nixon.
They were together since what, like elementary school or middle school or something like that? Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And actually, the joke's more effective if you go even further back with the president.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think they picked the wrong administration.
See, the Carter administration is funny if we say it, because we weren't around.
Yeah, if you use it in that way, you make it a joke that it was a really long time ago and you're being like, overly far, sure. But his age does not line up to his story and that president.
What was it? Was Reagan president when we were born?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reagan and Bush won.
I only know that because of Back to the Future.
The actor?
The actor?
And now we get to the next scene, and it's Tony waiting out front. He's like outside, like just kind of hanging by a streetlight, and he's waiting for Melanie to show up. And he doesn't know what she looks like. He's only talked to her on the phone for a second. So now you see two women walk up, and you see the real Melanie, who's Lori Loughlin, who's very attractive. I mean, most of you know her as Aunt Becky from Full House. And then you see another girl who's less attractive than her. She's not like I don't even think that the gag they were going for was that obvious.
She was older. That's what it was.
This needed to be like a Buzz's girlfriend woof scenario. Because otherwise you're ragging on this poor woman.
There's obviously one was a more appealing option than the other, but yeah, the other woman was just like a very average normal woman.
And when he's like, "Oh, it's not you," oh, thank God. It's like, oh, come on, Tone.
He's looking back and forth. He doesn't know which one it's going to be. And then the real Melanie looks over at the random other girl and goes, "Oh, hey, Melanie, how's it going?" And he goes, and now he looks disappointed. And she goes, "Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm Melanie." It's like, this poor woman. What the fuck did she do wrong?
This is like when Michael Scott goes on the date with Pam's landlord. And you just feel so bad for that poor woman that whole episode.
She was so nice.
I know.
Yeah, I couldn't stop thinking about like just the idea of this woman walking down the street, and then you have this fucking beautiful girl basically going, "Haha, I'm prettier than you."
That's so fucked up. Yeah.
But the two of them meet, and Tony's a little hesitant first. He's a little shy when he starts talking. He's like, "Hey, I made some reservations at this Italian restaurant I know of." And she's like, "Oh, I hate reservations. They're so planned." And I'm like,
"Man, fuck you."
Yeah, like,
so weird.
Fuck your plans. I thought that was just such an awkward way to start a date.
The way the relationship goes, too, it would have made more sense if she was like, "Well, I made reservations at this restaurant that I like, and I'm headstrong, and I want to do this," instead of making a joke that made no sense at all.
Because they made it more like she was like this free spirit type, and like, let's see where the road takes us. But
they went the wrong way with it, though. She wasn't like that. Like they should have made like a hippie or something.
And like, yeah, I think it would have made a lot more sense if she also had a reservation, or at the very least presented the situation differently than, like maybe if you said, "Oh, I got us a reservation at Dorsia," and she was like, "Oh, I hate it there. We got to go somewhere else." Like that works. But I hate the idea of reservations. Let's just walk around aimlessly and see what happens. Like, seemed weird.
Dorsia, nobody goes there anymore.
No. I also think that maybe it would have worked out too if we went the route that you just said, where she also had reservations, and then they go to do it, and then those reservations were fucked up. So because she made an error, they're now stuck going to this other place.
I mean, almost anything would have worked.
Anything else works, yeah. Like what I said.
But yeah, this whole, it's just a really weird early interaction. And now somehow this ends them at a Jamaican pool hall.
Sign me up. I mean,
not where I thought they'd end up, but sure.
It was an interesting set piece, though, where they walk in and you're like, "Oh, okay, sure." I will say, though, we talk about backdoor pilots. This episode should have just been a backdoor pilot for a show about this waiter, who is by far the best part of this whole show. He is amazing.
How did they get Clifford from the Muppets?
Oh, wait, you're talking about... Oh, man, we were talking about it earlier. What's the show?
Caribbean Pizza.
Yeah, it was Alfred's Caribbean Pizza?
I think so, yeah.
Alfred's Kirby Pizza?
No.
He's also in Marked for Death. He's one of Screwface's gang members.
Oh, Screwface. I love him.
Marked for Death was a very popular movie.
I'm sorry. It was Arnold's Caribbean Pizza.
Arnold's Caribbean
Pizza.
There you go. Alfredo's Pizza Kitchen.
No, he's actually one of those guys, too. The actor is Jeffrey Anderson-Gunter. He's in, by the way, every episode of this show, according to IMDb. I can't confirm. but he is a mainstay on the show somehow, so I don't know if this becomes their hangout afterwards.
I love this pool hall.
Oh, the extra should be here. The Rumaki's really good.
But he's also the guy who's in like every show. When you like look through his credentials, he's been in everything.
He's been in everything, and I couldn't tell you anything. I just know his face.
He's just the
Yeah.
Jamaican guy in every show, you know?
Now, were you guys shocked that this place had waiter service?
No, some bars will do that.
Yeah, I think it's just confusing because of the size, but that's just like that part of, like it's a busy, cramped city. So even though they're small, they're still going to have waiter service.
It does look, though, a little the restaurant part feels too restaurant-y for the pool hall part. So I'm with Gordo on this one. It feels like there's an odd divide
That's true,
when they cross over.
It feels more like a bar than like it feels like you would go order your drink at the bar and then walk over to that table while you're waiting for a pool table to open up.
Yeah, right.
Sure, but there are places like that I've gone to that do waiter service that are also kind of small like that.
Yeah.
But then you couldn't have gotten the funniest guy on the show in there.
It's true. But he could have been the bartender, I guess.
Yeah, it could have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, they when they first go to sit down, he makes that joke too about hey, I'm a cop. I hope they don't play I shot the sheriff. Like
Boo. Boo that joke.
burr, burr, burr.
His interactions here just feel like a little bit like, oh, this is so forced. Like, oh, I've been saying they should put a Rastafarian pool hall here for years. It's like, did he just want to say he learned the word
he wanted to say
Rastafarian? He wanted to
Rastafarian
say
really
it.
bad. Yeah.
And Bumari chicken or whatever he said.
Rumaki.
All right, gonna have to ask, what's Romaki?
It's like a Polynesian, like, tiki appetizer.
So when they first sit down, he's like going over like kind of what he was saying when he's practicing at home. But now he doesn't want to admit how long it's been since he's been on a date. So he just says, I haven't been on a formal date since the election.
Which would have been the year before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think he voted for Clinton?
No.
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 You don't think he loved Bubba?
So now Melanie's saying like, oh, so, well, this is going to be the part where we make small talk. And then when the waiter comes, we get to check each other out while the other one's ordering.
I hate this already. I like so hate Aunt Becky in this.
I don't hate her here.
I do.
This I thought was fine. It's almost everything else she says. This part I thought was okay.
I could see her character agitating you. Like, she's very cocky for kind of no reason.
Yeah, but I just think that comes more into play as it goes along.
I don't think it's her. I think this entire scene is just uncomfortable. It's you're watching somebody's bad date, and
Yeah.
it, like, no matter what side you're on, it's like it's very uncomfortable. 'Cause probably not exactly there, but everyone's been there on the bad date.
Oh, yeah. But in this case, I don't think it's either one of them. Both of them are making a lot of missteps here. Like,
Yeah.
as soon as she says that, she looks over at him and his back is turned to her so he could watch the game at the bar. Like, terrible. Like,
Yeah, the key to that is sit where
Yeah,
she
he
is
sat
sitting.
in the wrong spot. He fucked
Amateur
up.
move. Yep.
Yep.
and then it's just that whole like, oh, yeah, no, I'm sorry about that. I just, I was supposed to go to the game. So now what are you guilt tripping her? Like,
Yeah, that's great.
That could have got him laid if he said he was supposed to take his son to that game and he gave it up for her.
Yeah. Okay.
nice little joke where the callback to earlier when he asks if she's a sports fan and she says, oh, well, I love those dog shows. And he goes, oh, well, I heard they're all fixed.
That one was good.
I like that one.
That was one of those jokes where, like, they finished up early that day. Somebody wrote that, and they were like, we're done. It's not
I'll
getting
tell
any
you
better
who
than
wrote
this.
it. Tony wrote it.
He almost feels like first movie Rocky a little bit with those sort of jokes here. Like, he's kind of bumbling, and he's like, turtles, the dogs are fixed. Like, it seems like he must have watched all the Rocky movies and was like, I need to take a part of that character.
One thing we're getting from Melanie's character is she rambles a lot and she's always kind of going 50 steps ahead. And you're getting a little bit of that in this conversation. Not the worst of it. We'll get into that later. But as she's kind of going on and on, he's going, Melanie, have you ever actually made small talk yourself? Like, personally? Like, the waiter walks up and we were just talking about him earlier. Again, best known from his work with Arnold's Caribbean Pizza.
Which we are covering for sure, by the way.
He says, like, hey, have you guys made any decisions yet? He goes, yeah, never to wear my hair like that. I was like, ooh, yikes.
Yeah.
I was waiting because, Jay, you're the guy who does all the voices, and I was like, I wonder if Jay's going to slip into a
Nope.
Jamaican patois thing here.
Yeah.
It's so fucking funny.
Come on, that's not offensive. You've done the Jamaican bobsled team voice a million times.
Yeah,
this.
so it's weird. It's like a pick your spot thing, right? It's I just don't want to this time, but yeah, it always feels weird when it's so it's such a conversation for another day. But it's like if you do an accent with some people, it's fine. With some, it's not fine, and it's teetering that line sometimes. And I really want to be Switzerland here. I'm not trying to get anybody angry, but yeah, I mean,
what are our Jamaican downloads like? Do we know that?
we have some. I wouldn't say it's one of our top countries, but
hello to our Jamaican friends.
Jamaican me crazy.
And now they're not our friends anymore.
They just turned it off.
I enjoy your meat patties.
Oh, I do love a good Jamaican beef patty. Yeah,
I like a good. I never had jerk chicken before. I had jerk chicken once.
That's actually a better call. I love jerk chicken way more than I like the Jamaican beef patties, but
I had jerk chicken once, and like it was so hot, I was like pooping fire for days. It was so
as opposed to
uncomfortable.
when.
No. This was like, you know how they say you have like taste buds on your butt?
nope.
No. What?
You have.
What?
The fact that you presented that like you thought we really did all hear that.
Oh my god. Oh, please go on. We're waiting.
You know I'm the last person who wants to make poop talk, but just real quick, that's not why it burns if you eat spicy food and then go to the bathroom. It's not the heat from your taste buds. It's just that's not why it burns on the way out as well. If you eat savory food and you're like, ooh, I don't want to say anything.
A little umami on the butthole.
This is where we lost all the Jamaicans, by the way. We're making jokes about where it was. Gordo's thoughts on jerk chicken have officially ended those listens.
Holy shit, he's right. He's right. Google it. Just Google it. Taste receptacles do exist in your anus and testicles, but they're not likely to overwhelm traditional forms of taste. So he's not far off, unfortunately.
I guess Gordo was the brain surgeon doctor of this episode.
I couldn't possibly want to talk about anything less than this, but
Yeah.
other than spicy food, where else would that apply?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have any of you ever sat on a toilet and been like, did I eat sour candy earlier? Like,
Your butt doesn't pucker up after a few Sour Patch Kids.
Well, getting out of this conversation and back into the date, you have the two of them talking, and we find out that Tony's reputation at the paper is that he's a press-hating, anti-civil rights, lock him up and throw away the key reactionary type of person. He's like, oh, they say that about me?
Yeah, I love that he's stoked at that description of himself.
Kind of surprised that he himself, like, just being like a regular, just like an officer, has like that kind of a reputation at the paper.
He really likes those long descriptors.
Get into a lot of things about, like, what are you supposed to do when, when you find someone who's guilty? Like, you're supposed to just, like, let the rat go after you catch him? And she's talking about how, like, well, sometimes it's better to just, like, leave him in society than, going through the whole, like, imprisonment and how it could benefit. And they're having this big debate.
No, she says it's better to let a bunch of guilty people go than have one innocent person in jail.
Right, all right. To get the leg up on the conversation, he lays down the fucking awkward hammer with, yeah, when I was 11 years old, my father was shot down in a shoe store. The guy who did it, he's free. And then I was just like, boo. Okay, suck the air out of the room for that.
Yeah, right?
This sitcom's funny. This is a really funny sitcom.
Yeah.
Like, all right, fucking Batman, chill out.
They didn't even give this more, right? Like, which they just stopped on it. I don't know how to explain this. Like, this tough topic was jammed in and then pulled out. They never really, like, beveled the way for it to come in.
They didn't elaborate on it.
He kind of realized he made it awkward. Because he was the one's like, well, enough about me. Want to go play pool?
Yeah, at least, I don't know, like smooth the edges of it before you continue. They just stopped and kept going. It was really weird how this one worked out.
He should have said something about, like, and I never got those shoes.
It's just weird because after he says that, she goes, "I'm so sorry," and it's like, oh, they're gonna make up, and then they just go right back to fighting.
Right. If that was like, let's go do something different, or like, let's not fight
There was
anymore.
like nothing to cut the tension after that, you know?
Yeah.
My dad got gunned down in a shoe store. Talk about a soulless crime.
It was so good. He did it in the Tony voice.
So I wonder with this whole playing pool thing, because Melanie tells him as they're going to the table that she's pretty good at pool. She said she didn't like reservations for whatever reason and want to just kind of find what they find. You think there's a chance that she intentionally brought him to a pool hall because she knows she's good at pool?
I was going to say, and then they pull out the weird, she's a pool shark.
But she's not. She wasn't good. He was kicking her ass until he sinks the 8-ball.
Oh, no. I mean, she had like a decent like break and
Yeah, the break
She
was
did have a good shot. I also liked how when he racked the balls, he racked them the right way, which I thought
I
was
like that
interesting.
she rolled the cue on the or the stick on the table first to make sure it wasn't warped.
Yeah.
Those were all like nice little details that I did appreciate watching that.
I wish they put that much effort into like the rest of the show.
Writing the episode. Yeah. It was like the writing was whatever, but they had one guy on hand who was a pool expert, like, oh.
Yeah, they'd hire a consultant.
No one would just pick up the stick and use it. You're going to roll it on the table first. Oh, okay.
Really? I never knew that.
We want to make sure it's not warped.
Been so long since I played pool, so.
I used to play a lot years ago,
I used
but
to too.
I haven't played in a long time.
Same.
Yeah, we used
I
to
like
go
to
to that
drink a
place.
beer while other people play pool because I'm terrible at pool.
It'd be one of those things to be fun if you had the space for it, but it is like,
Yeah.
it takes up so much
Oh,
space.
it
to
takes
have
up
one
a
in your
ton of
house.
room. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
tough to have one at home unless you have like a big open like basement, like a
Yeah,
face
not only do you
basement.
need to fit a pool table, you need to fit 5 feet around the entire pool
Right.
table
Yeah.
too to swing the stick.
I love playing at the Rosebud because we would just unlock the pool table and then we play.
Pool's one of those games, like much like say like golf, where it's fun if you play with people of a similar skill level, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you play with someone who's significantly better than you, it's not even
fun.
remotely fun at all.
Not fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Pool's a tough one too, because if you play with somebody who's really good and they get a good break, you might not even get to go once.
Yeah,
That's okay. So like that's like pool hall, like crazy good. At a bottom, you might run into some, but like I feel like somebody who's that good isn't hanging out there unless they're like hustling. But most people don't do that.
You know, like Uncle Phil. He was a pool shark.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, Philip Banks.
We should play pool one of these days.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, we used to go to that one all the time and put the Grease Megamix on.
yeah. If they sell the jukebox, I'll go back. So they're trying to make some small talk as they're playing. He does go with the very corny obituary joke, asking her about the business, and says that it's kind of a dead end job. And she starts laughing. So he thinks he got like a good joke in on her, and then she goes, "Oh, that's actually crazy that no one's ever said that to me before."
What a bitch. She can't give him that one thing.
Well, listen, they're both just shooting each other down at all times. Like this,
Yeah. There's a precedent for them not getting along already.
I mean, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and she's going at Tony really hard. That's why he's like that to her.
she starts telling him like, "Well, this is just kind of like the job I have for now, but the goal is to get a promotion to the Metro desk, and then eventually I would like to become an investigative reporter for the New York Times."
And then be the host of Wake Up San Francisco.
Yes. And then he goes, "I kind of think the First Amendment's overrated." And then she shoots the ball off the table.
That's a good way to make her scratch, though. I thought that was a fun gag.
It's like, "It was a joke. It was a joke." And she's like, "I bet that's why you got divorced." He's like, "Whoa, how do you know I got divorced?" And then it's just that whole, "Well, obviously someone would have married you by now." It's like, "What's that mean?" "Well, you're kind of cute." And then,
This really starts going even further downhill from here.
well, he goes, "Are you looking at my butt?" And then we all know Nick's the one who looks at Tony Danza's butt.
It's a good butt, man. I don't know what you want me to say.
He's got a good butt.
To those of you who are not all caught up with all extravaganzas, episode 1 of this 4-week thing was Taxi. And I think maybe 1 minute into the episode, Nick's like, Anyone else check out Tony Danza's butt?
No. What I said was it seemed to be the focal point of a long scene. Like he was just standing there in the tightest jeans ever made, and it was just the center of the screen.
Well, they
And I
had
was the
to
only
skip
one who
out
noticed
on all
it.
the denim up top because they needed all the extra denim for the bottom back then.
Also, Jay, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw rocks with the picture of Tony Danza you posted today.
Well, by now it's a couple weeks ago.
A couple of weeks
But,
ago.
yeah. I just wanted a nice eye-catching photo of Tony Danza to celebrate the month.
He's a handsome man.
Could call him Hansa.
I want to give him shit, but I was going to make the same joke.
I didn't even hear it.
I said you could call it Hansa.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to make the same joke. Never mind. I just heard you wrong.
I like that the resolution to the, like, were you looking at my butt? No. Well, you are now. Would have worked if he was standing in a position where she could see his butt.
She could
but
see
he was
his butt,
angled
yeah.
wrong for
Yeah.
it. Yeah. He was like facing her.
Directly away from her. Yeah.
These are all moments that should have turned things around, and then they just keep going back to fighting.
Well, so the other thing I thought for the you are now is that he's in the lead in pool and she's behind him is the only other you're looking at my butt reference because his butt really was directly away from her. It didn't make any sense.
It was impossible for her to look
Yeah.
at it, even if she tried.
Maybe there was a big mirror there.
She's saying obnoxious but cute. He's like, you know, if I said the same thing, you would have been flying off the handle, right? She goes, you really think I'm cute? He goes, yes. And now she looks stunned because, I don't know, it must be rare for someone who's as attractive as her to ever be called attractive by anybody.
It doesn't make any sense. She is a very, very pretty woman. Like, and she obviously knows it because she made a gag about it.
Really? You think I'm cute? And she's like, oh my.
He's like smitten. Like,
Yeah.
Should have ended the scene there and had them wake up in bed together. Boom.
The two of them couldn't possibly have less chemistry. So the whole fundamental thing, like even like later as this episode evolves, the only thing that they have going for them is they find each other attractive. Other than that, there's zero reason for them to even be in the same room.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of long-term, long-lasting relationships that, you know, go on for years with people who just think each other are attractive and don't get along. It works all the time.
You know, it would have helped if they had bought drinks by now, because then they maybe could have tolerated each other if they were drinking.
Yeah.
yep. They didn't even pay for the pool game.
He may have. She certainly didn't, as we'll find out. But she does the other really cool thing to do on a first date. Ask about your failed marriage. So now she's asking him how that went. And he's like, oh, well, you know, we met in the 7th grade. They switched sandwiches. They both had sandwiches the other one liked. And that turned into them always hanging out under the bleachers and making out and sharing sandwiches. And eventually did more than making out. And that was kind of their relationship.
During the Carter administration, when he was 34 years old.
And then he's like, why am I telling you all this? And she's like, probably because you're a little lonely and I'm easy to talk to. It's a weird thing to say about yourself. But and he goes, I'm not lonely. And he's like, I've known crazed gunmen who are easier to talk to than you, which is true. For her to think that she's easy to talk to is insane.
This is, he's putting in some effort.
She's actually impossible to talk to. Yeah.
Yeah, she's incredibly aggressive. I would have put up with it though, I think.
That's the thing
Well,
too,
yeah.
though. It's like,
Yeah.
It goes back into like at the end of the day and like, oh, but she's pretty. So
Yeah.
there goes all logic.
But she writes a mean obituary, though.
And then he's asking, like, why'd you even ask me to dinner? And she's like, I don't know. I guess I was feeling adventurous. He's like, well, I thought you said you were feeling intimidated. Well, yeah, but that's how I get when I'm intimidated. And now it's like, even the writers are writing that nothing they're saying is consistent. Like, even
Yeah.
the writers are going, this is bad writing. They actually wrote in their own episode that nothing makes sense.
and this is really dragging at this point. This is a real, like, how much longer of this do we have to go?
This is really dragging these nuts, right, Gordo?
Oh, Ferg, awesome
That's a
joke.
good one, Ferg.
No, these nuts.
That's a good one, Ferg. I like that. High five.
So now he's looking at the TV again, and like she's acknowledging how like rude that is as they're talking about both being lonely. The waiter comes back again and says like, hey, do you guys need some more time? And she's like, no, we just be wasting it. And then she like gets up to leave. He's like, oh, come on, we can have like an appetizer or something. And she's like, what's the point? We'd only start thinking we're gonna have a good time, and then we'd end up ordering dinner. And then after some wine, we'd actually start thinking we liked each other. And by the time we said goodbye, you'd be thinking, well, she did have a certain something, And I'd be thinking, well, he could make my knees a little teeny bit weak. And then after a few more dates, we'd end up having unfathomable sex, which would just dilute the further us into thinking that there was any real connection whatsoever, which would cause us to waste months or even years in a relationship that was an obvious disaster to begin with. And then we'd have to drag ourselves and all our friends throughout this big breakup just to get back to where we already are right now. No, thank you. And storms out.
Fuck you.
Did you see the girl in the background just smiling, looking at her? Did anybody else clock that?
I'm on TV.
Pretty much. She just was like looking and was like, like.
If I was her, if I was Lori in the middle of that monologue and someone did anything to fuck up the take, I would punch them.
I mean, you have to give her credit. That's a
super long. I read it and flubbed it up while reading it.
Yeah.
For her to have that memorized and be able to deliver it, yeah, it's a lot.
Again, but the more poor writing, because that monologue came from somewhere. Like, so when they were talking about his divorce, she should have said something like, yeah, I just got left by my husband or something like that. Or because this is all life experience stuff. It comes from nowhere, though, and doesn't lead to anywhere, like everything else in this show.
Well, I get her. So, I mean, I guess like the gist of what she was saying is like, there's nothing there. Why pretend there is just because we're attracted to one another and then drag it out and then who knows what'll happen. And then eventually we're going to end up in the same spot we're in now, years down the road, still single, and because we wasted all this time with each other. Presented in a really weird way. And she storms out and Tony goes to the waiter, what do you think unfathomable sex is? And he goes, I don't know, but it doesn't look like anything you're going to have to worry about. And again, funnier in a Jamaican accent, but I really don't think I should do it right now.
Yeah. Imagine what Jay just said in a Jamaican accent.
Fine, do it in a Bobcat Goldthwait accent. Go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But Bobcat Goldthwait doing a Jamaican accent.
I'm a talking buddy.
That's all he says. What's your Pokemon?
Why did you speak out of the corner of your mouth like Angelica from Rugrats? Like, what
That's
were
how you do a
just
good
doing
Jamaican
there?
accent. You talk out of the corner of your mouth. So now in the next scene, we're back at the office and Tony's at his desk and the other two guys are just like standing there looking at him because they want the dirt about the date. He goes, oh, well, I could tell she liked me right away. He's like getting into more details and he's standing up and he's talking. He's like, well, I took her to this funky little Rasta place I know, and then I beat her in a game of 8-ball and then we're about to have unfathomable, and looks over, realizes that Melanie is in the room. He goes, Rumaki, because as mentioned before, Rumaki came up in conversation and he's like, hey, so what are you doing here? And she goes, oh, I'm here to pick up the $5 you owe me for when I beat you at pool. And he's telling the guys, Rasta pool, different rules.
I did laugh at that. I thought that was a good him backpedaling.
So the two other guys leave them alone.
Not before the most awkward fucking stammering by Rumaki or whatever the hell his name was.
Rogalski?
Yeah.
Oh, when he was thanking her about the obituary?
Yeah, he was like, oh, thank you. And he just like standing there was like, just shut the fuck up and leave.
He's like, oh, you can write one for me anytime.
It looks like he's smitten by her.
Why didn't he try to date her? He was really
Right.
talking to her.
Because he even says, like, you sound nice on the phone. So, like, why didn't he be...
Maybe he's married.
Maybe he's just a good friend, and Tony needs this more than me.
It goes back to the thing that happened in the taxi episode. It's just everybody's obsessed with this idea like Tony needs to go on a date. So now we're all just going to bring up that Tony needs to go on a date. Doesn't matter if he also needs to go on a date, but Tony's got to go on a date. So that's what we're going to drive that in, over and over and over and over again. But yeah, so he's asking her, hey, what are you doing here? And we find out that she got the promotion and now she works in the Metro desk. So she's going to be working like right down the hall in the same area.
This confused me. So she has a desk in the police station?
You said in the city room, so I don't know how these things work.
Maybe it's like connected to the town hall.
Because usually newspapers are their own buildings with a newsroom.
She's not
You know what I
in
mean?
the newspaper though. She's in the city office, i.e., like they have a press room. Like think of what was it? Just Shoot Me?
Spin City.
Yeah, that's it. Where they had their own like room that was connected to the mayor's office.
Yeah.
But that was for like press conferences and stuff.
Yeah, but they had offices there in the city hall with them.
Did they? It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah, I'm a little confused by the dynamic, but it could just be something I don't understand. I don't know if it's I don't know.
Any cops or journalists who listen, let us know.
Or cop journalists.
So he's congratulating her and saying, congratulations. And she's like, thanks. And, it would really help if you to have a good contact around here. He's like, oh, well, if you have any trouble finding one, let me know. And he's joking around, and basically she's saying, well, if any stories pop up, I'd appreciate it. The phone rings, and he's going, what? No kidding. How many hostages? And she perks up. She's like, what? He goes, hang on. He's like, hey, you didn't hear it from me, but Hobson and Webster. And she's like, okay, thanks, I owe you. And she runs off. And we find out that he's just on the phone with his son. He's like, oh, sorry, I was kidding around. No, we're going rollerblading later. And I thought that was a nice little,
I did like that, yeah.
It's playful,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's it's not too mean-spirited. It's playful enough.
I do love the idea, too, of thinking of Tony Danza rollerblading. I immediately mental imaged that and was like, oh, I want to see
All
that.
right. Okay, Joe. In your mental image, his butt probably looked pretty good, right?
Of course. Hey, I was on your side that he's a handsome man with a good butt. Nothing at all.
No, I think he's still in jeans, funny enough.
Oh, you wearing tiny shorts like rollerbladers wear.
95.
Yeah, it's tiny short season.
Long shorts are starting to come into style.
For the youth, for our age.
The Utes.
Yeah, I don't see Tony putting on a pair of Jenko shorts and going rollerblading.
Talking about something I need to see.
I'm thinking right around then, isn't that when the the Fab Five in Michigan, is that when they started with the longer basketball shorts? Was that right around here too?
Probably.
I'm not positive.
I'm not going to answer because I could be wrong. I don't know.
That's why I said could be yes, could be no.
1991. So before this, 91 is when that started. So yeah, longer shorts are already established at this point. Basketball, at least in basketball, but
And he's a big basketball fan, we know.
it's true. Had those Knick tickets. But yeah, no, from there we have that final closing scene, and it's just Tony alone at home, and he's watching the dog show. As he's watching it, the commentating to the dog show is lined up with the personality types of him and Melanie. So first we hear about the terrier that's can be unpredictable, but she's usually lively and pugnacious and all these things, and basically describing Melanie. And then it's and next we have the German Shepherd. He's brave and intelligent, easy to train, and he's a great police dog. And then you get if you didn't already get what they're going with on this, you just have the commentator of the dog show just flat out say the Suki seems to be making the Shepherd a little nervous.
They would never be in the same group, by the way, unless they were in Best in Show.
Gordo's main problem with this entire episode is the grouping of the dog show being inaccurate. Why start writing properly now, right? We're the last minute of the show. Why?
True.
They didn't put the same care they did into research for pool as they did for dog shows, apparently.
Yeah, you have to roll the dog on the ground to make sure it's not bowed, to make sure it'll run straight.
Yeah, that was the conclusion of Hudson Street.
Thank God.
I can't believe that show was an hour and 15 minutes.
That was a very interesting movie we just watched.
It's one of those things, though. Not much happens. It really, very little happens in the episode.
It's
Yeah.
just dialogue heavy. It's dense.
It goes apartment real quick, work real quick. The meat of the episode is the bad date, and then back to work apartment. It's just those outside or in between outside the date are just so quick and useless. It's just weird.
The whole episode is, you should go on a date. Hey, I'm on a date. Hey, I went on a date. That's all that happened. But yeah, no, I didn't clock watch the same way you guys did, but I definitely didn't think that it was, I don't know, Tony Danza is so charming, but
No one is disagreeing. I don't think Tony Danza is bad in this. Again, a lot of good people, but
Even Lori Loughlin is, objectively good in the episode.
now to go back to what Joe said earlier, he saw a review where someone said the show gets better with time. I could see that happening.
Yeah,
I
can
could see the basic premise in the two of them having enough chemistry if they can iron out those characters a little bit better. I think the pieces are there where you can make this a good show, but I think this was just, again, it was just a product of the writing was not great for the episode, at least for a first episode, because I just felt like I was lost the whole time. Like, what's going on? I don't understand anyone's relationship with one another. I don't understand his relationship with his ex. I don't understand why these two are even near each other. Like, nothing was really like fleshed out that well.
It's like rare will they, won't they, where I want them to won't they. Like, I don't want them to get together
Yeah,
because I
right.
don't like them together.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I don't dislike them together. Obviously, it's what they want, and I don't know. As I said that, I'm like, maybe I don't want them together. I can't tell. Yeah.
The issue here, though, is I think that woman is wrong, right? Because if this show did get better with time, in the sweet spot of being between Roseanne and Home Improvement, people would have kept watching it, right? Like it's in between two shows people were gonna watch, and the show was good, they'd watch it.
Yeah, it's in a position where it's going to have its base viewers, like because it exists where it does in the time slot is enough. But it did get moved. It eventually got moved to like a Sunday slot or something, which is obviously
If you go to the weekend, it's death.
yeah. So maybe the improvements were too little, too late. So it started strong, but by the time they move it, even if the show is better, no one's gonna follow it to the Sunday slot. So
It was enough to make people that are watching TV for an hour and a half shut off the TV for a half hour in between or change the channel. Like
more likely change the channel. I just imagine them turning it off and sitting there for 30 minutes, like
Looking at their watches.
you know how bad you have to be between those two shows though, and like,
Yeah.
not be successful.
and that says a lot about the confidence they had in the show too. I mean, again, on paper.
I think they just had confidence in Tony Danza, and rightfully so. He's great, but you can't you can't expect him to carry, bad writing too. Like, you need everything for it to work.
But we talked about this a pretty great length. So only thing left to do is greenlight or cancel. So I'll go in the order I see you in, Joe, starting with you.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious how I felt from the beginning on this one. I don't want to dig in more. Good cast, bad writing, not really the chemistry you think they would have, and everything is opposite of how it probably should be. It was a very, very long watch. Tony couldn't save it, right? And I feel bad canceling anything on his extravaganza month because we are such huge fans of him. But this was one of the ones I had like the hardest time. And I have 5 pages of notes for this. I am so mad that I took so many notes for this show. This is canceled.
Ferg.
Yeah, not too far off from what Joe said. I very much disliked this show. I was bored. I didn't like it before the date. Like, I'm just like, this is kind of mediocre. And then I went on the date, and it was just made me uncomfortable and angry. And Tony was great, but when like the next best character is the kid actor, you got a problem. Just did not do it for me at all. I haven't clock watched like this in a long time, and this is one of the worst shows we've covered in a long time. So very hard cancel for me.
Nick.
Yeah, I'm canceling. Like Joe said, this is not. I don't love canceling this just because we're in the extravaganza month and I don't want to cancel one of his shows. But this show is what it is, and it's just not great. Very simply put, it's a pretty easy cancel. I'll tell you this though, this might be, and I'm not one to do this. Ferg does this more than anybody, I think, but I might hate watch the rest of this show, or at least the next episode, just to kind of see
Do it
what
together,
happens.
buddy. We'll talk
Yeah.
about it.
Overall, no, I am not really very intrigued to, see what else happens. It's just not great, bad writing, and easy cancel.
And if anyone does want to hate watch, it's just out of general curiosity, just because you heard us talking about it, YouTube basically has the entire series up, so you can usually find it on YouTube if you so choose. Gordo.
I could taste how bad this show was because it was shit. Like, it was just shit.
Did you just say you eat shit?
You piece of shit for breakfast.
You eat shit for breakfast? No. No, I meant that the show was poop, and sometimes you could taste poop, like jerk chicken. And either way, that joke was better than this show. Like, within the first 5 minutes, I was clock watching. So I'm glad that everybody else feels the same way. Cancel.
So, yeah, I'm not here to do anything different than the rest of the bunch. I really wanted to like this show. When you first turn it on, you're like, okay, it's like classic sitcom. It's got a nice little jingle with Tony Danza singing. Like, here we go. And then all these characters, like, other than the two of them, it's like, and generic police officer, and generic police officer, and generic female police officer. And it's like there was just nothing there. The characters weren't really that well fleshed out. The relationships weren't really that well fleshed out. And then the writing it didn't work. And it just sucks because I look at a show like this and I'm like, you just changed the head writer of this episode and this show could have gone on for years. You know what I mean? Like the framework's there, but it just, the writing fucking killed it. So with that being said, I am so sorry, Tony Danza. I am so sorry to do this during the extravaganza, but 0 out of 5.
It feels so bad to let him down. I feel like like he's our dad, like our sad uncle.
Tony, it's not you. It's not you.
I really hope that this doesn't happen for next week's show.
I don't remember if we 0 out of 5 baby talk or not, if that could have been subbed in, if we had done things in a different order. But yeah, again, sorry, Tony Danza specifically, but the show does not live on to see another week with us. I want to thank all of you guys for listening and for sticking with us during this extravaganza. We got one more episode of Tony Danza related material for you next week. And until then, go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all our links to everything. So just do the stuff, subscribe, buy a t-shirt, follow us on social media, hit us up, let us know shows you want us to cover. Is there an actor or actress that you think would be a good subject to do a theme month based around them in the future? Let us know. We've been talking about, maybe doing more things like this in the future. Yeah, let us know, but thank you for listening again. We'll catch you again next week with another new episode in our final week of the extravaganza. But until then, thank you. Goodbye.
I think we got the best. Inmate number 77827-112.
What?
No, it's Lori Loughlin's prison number when she had to go to jail.